Hello, I'm Ericka Seward, and today we are going to talk about restorative justice. Listen, I'm tired, and I know you are tired too, of the division that happens. You're tired of the division, and we are all saying that we want change, but we want change, and we're saying it in different rooms that are sometimes also divided. And this furthers more division. I get it. We're human. We are all going through things. We're going to experience injustice in many forms. And going to the courts and through the judicial system is in itself divisive. Just think about it. When you go to court, the first thing that you're told is to not have any communication with the other person that's involved. It's not designed for us to come together. It's not designed for us to live in unity or resolve problems positively. It's true, every situation might not be able to be restored, but there are a lot of things that can be done differently. So today, myself and a few of my friends, we're going to talk about restorative justice. Without productive changes, the end will be the same as the beginning, and it's up to us and to use our people power to make some changes. So stay live with us while we have this discussion about restorative justice.
Don't forget what we did today. Today is history. Don't just go home and say, hey, let me post it. Live it.
Put a fist in the air.
To change, we just have to be stubborn enough. We just have to be strong enough. We just have to be relentless.
How do we fix it? We didn't break it.
Guys, thank you all. I pass the mic to the next person. Black women matter.
Thanks for joining us today, and I am here with a couple of friends, and we are going to talk about restorative justice. I'm here with Shreeta and Kinisha, and they're going to tell you a little bit about themselves.
So, hi everyone. I am Shreeta Walden, and my social media tags are Shreeta Marie, my first and middle name, for those that'll be looking for me. But my government is Shreeta Walden, and I'm the executive director for Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition. Um, and my background is I'm a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor, and been in social services for a total of 17 years, but very specific in the drug and alcohol and prevention space for the last 15 years. So when I think about restorative justice and what I've done in the work, we all know when you go look up the term and go look up this type of work, it's something that has been embraced and colonized in systems, but not really focused on us. So marrying that world with harm reduction in the world that I work in, what I see restorative justice being is really hitting off of the word restore, healing, healing. And then for us as Black people, so getting very specific, not all communities of color, I'm really focusing this conversation and what I'm bringing to the table is around the Black community. So healing a village concept and how we can bring restoration back into our community. So thank you for having me.
Yes,
For this
thanks for
discussion.
being here,
Yes.
for sure. Kanisha, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what your definition of restorative justice is?
Yeah, so my name's Kinisha Carey on Facebook as Kinisha Carey. I've been involved in restorative justice. I was introduced about 7 years ago. And then just through life, was able to join the organization through Volunteers of America. They have a restorative justice program. So I am the official community mediation center coordinator. Um, so yeah, for to me, restorative justice means kind of a lot what Shreeta said. Community. It's getting back into that mentality of when we were handled as a community. When something happened as a community, we handled it together. When we had a moment to celebrate, we celebrated each other together. So it's really restorative justice to me is really about getting back to that togetherness. Right, wrong, and indifferent. We handle it together. We handle it as a people, as a community, and that's what it means to me.
Mm. So while we're with you, I have a question. What would you say the difference is between restorative justice and transformative justice?
Okay, so restorative justice is essentially built around community. It's about relationships and people. Transformative justice is more so the higher upper, the bigger circle of it. So it's about the system. It's about society. They're really similar in that you can't really do one without the other. Um, so when we're talking about restorative justice, that's about two people or a group of people or community. But when I'm working on in something in transformative justice, it's about what happened in that system to bring you that situation. So that is the judicial system, the school system. How do we repair those systems and heal in that way? So they're very different, but in reality, you can't do one working with a person without looking at the bigger picture of it as a society.
Mhm. I agree. One thing I noticed when I looked up the definition of restorative justice was I found the word harm in there a few times. Not only the person who was done harm to them, but the person who performed the harm. So, Sharita, how would you say harm reduction relates to, plays a role in restorative justice?
And that's such an amazing question because it has everything to do with it, right? We're talking about reducing harm. So a lot of people have heard about harm reduction by way of substance use, right? And the first thing that usually comes to people's mind is syringe service programs, right? Access to naloxone or Narcan for overdose prevention. But what I like to educate around when we're talking about harm reduction is actually even more simple, right? Reducing the risk of harm. When you think of a restoration practice or bringing back or restoring relationships between individuals, so between communities, or even let's bring it more micro, like between family members. All we're talking about really is addressing, holding the person themselves accountable to the harm that was committed. Sometimes, you guys, and especially in our community, it's unintentional harm. When a person is in a survival mode, are they actually consciously thinking of how this is going to negatively impact the person on the other side? So when you marry the foundational principles of harm reduction, which there are 8, but there are some very specific ones. Meeting people where they are, meaning you don't force them to walk through. There's people that can come to the table that are just not ready to have the conversation. That's okay. The other piece is people with lived experience. When we're talking about the Black community and what happens in the community of Blackness and our culture, it's us. So when I think of restorative justice being implemented or accessed in spaces where it doesn't look like us, then I don't see it being a meaningful space. Now, I'm not saying that agencies and organizations shouldn't implement. I absolutely believe that every organization should have a component. It shouldn't be an option. But when we're talking about direct impact, the people at the table need to look like the people who are sitting here now. So when we talk about harm reduction, it is a part of us. In fact, it's restoring, it says it in our foundational principles that what we're doing is restoring people back to their own health, their humanity, restoring them back to their communities, restoring their mental health, restoring their physical health. So we're in their spiritual health. Like, it's all about it's all together.
Yes.
It's all together, which is
Yes.
what I the simple way of saying it.
And that makes a lot of sense because when I think of a lot of the problems we have in mental health, regular physical health, um, the solutions to them are held back because our society does not seem to want us healthy. It doesn't seem to want us to be productive. It wants us to be sick and, in the mental institution, in jail. It seems to want that. But this is a practice that I feel like will bring us back to being more productive and being more healthy in a holistic way.
Hmm.
So we're going to dig in and get a little bit closer
Yeah.
in on how this relates to our own lives and the lives we deal with every day. But we're going to have a quick break, give us a little time to air out, and we'll be right back.
The lights of Kentucky Performing Arts shine on more than our shows. They illuminate a pathway of discovery for all throughout our Commonwealth. A pathway of creativity, confidence, possibility, of brilliance, inspiration, curiosity, and wonder. For 40 years, Kentucky Performing Arts has led a pathway to unite the Commonwealth around the joy of discovering the arts and will continue to shine this light far into the future.
So now we're going to bring it in a little bit more personal.
All right
And
now.
I love that I see you in a lot of different arenas, in a lot of different audiences. And recently, you are on Louisville's own Messy Besties,
Woo-hoo.
which everybody needs to know about what you bring and the work you're doing. But let's be real, okay? The Messy Besties is exactly what it is.
Mhm.
There's drama, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it because I have tuned in. I've been a fan,
Oh yeah.
you know. So we all like a little bit of excitement, and we like a little bit of something that gets our blood boiling. And sometimes we just want to say what we want to say. So, do you think that Louisville is ready for restorative justice practices?
Well, let me say this. I think that there are people in Louisville that would be ready if they knew it existed.
Exactly.
Um, what I loved about being on the Messy Besties, and whoever's on this live right now, tag the Messy Besties on there.
Yes.
Um, what I love about that space, and I watched it for the first time, and boy, do Hezzy and Javon really get into the thick of it. But it's our community. It's our people. And what I've seen our community now, some people might get a little upset with me, but what I've seen some of our elders, and honestly, ladies, we are heading towards the elder phase of our life. People in their 40s, people in their late 30s, 50s, 60s, they would rather just shut our people down. oh, this happened in the community and no one wants to talk about it. But when we get a group of people who are like, we're going to talk about it, we're going to talk about what's happened in the community in our
Mhm.
own language, in our own language, in our own way.
Mhm.
And we're going to have discussions authentically and we're going to confront each other. That's
Mhm.
actually the space of where restorative justice in practice can go.
Yes.
We have to learn how to confront the issues. And so when I saw this opportunity,
Mhm.
and I know that in the work that I do, which is preventing our people, which we are at a high rate
Mhm.
of dying, the fatalities from overdoses
Yes.
is very high in the Black community. We are winning that.
Mhm.
Okay, we're winning that race. When I look at that platform, I'm like, hey, people use drugs all over the place.
Mhm.
I want to be engaged with this audience. These are my
Mhm.
people. I'm not afraid of my people.
Mhm.
I know that we're going to talk about the mess in our community.
Yes.
I think that if they know that there's a way for us to do this work, where we can say to officers that this situation does not need to involve law enforcement,
Right.
that this situation, a mom who's trying to engage her son, who's been catapulted and becoming a young adult at 15, acting like he's 25 because he has to help raise his family.
Yeah.
If we can take away the idea that law enforcement has to be called,
Mhm.
they would be more empowered themselves to
Mhm.
bring those type of conversations. Let me tell you what I love about Jawan and Hezi.
Yeah.
When I brought the idea to talk about overdose fatality on a show where they are talking about the thick of it in community,
Mhm.
meaning what's happened, what's
Mhm.
some of the nasty arguments that have come up, what have people put out on social media to
Mhm.
expose their personal lives. They were so for it.
Yeah.
They were like,
Yeah.
yes, because we've had people die in our community.
Mhm.
And my thing is, who else has reached out to them?
Mhm.
Who else that worked with me has tried to engage our community but looked at what they do and said, nah, they too much. That's not okay with me. So
Right.
do I feel like Louisville? Yes, I feel like Louisville in the totality of
Yes.
this city would be ready, absolutely. But I think they will push against something they don't know and
Mhm.
don't understand. And we don't have enough patience, we don't have enough understanding of our history. We don't have enough
Mhm.
understanding of what slavery, post slavery, has done to our
Mhm.
community, the disenfranchisement of our community. We don't connect the two and say that
Yes.
the reason why I don't like talking to these folks is because
Mhm.
they have never, ever gained the understanding of why they act the way that they do,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it takes us back to a time where we all want to forget it.
Mhm.
So I get a little activated, is
Yeah.
how I like to say it, because a lot of people may not have agreed to go in
Mhm.
that space. But I tell people I'll go anywhere where my
Right.
people are.
Right.
Because those people, especially the ones that are younger than me in their 20s,
Mhm.
I mean, one day I got to retire, right?
Yeah.
One day I won't be this person that I
Mhm.
am. Who's going to keep making noise, or do I have to
That's right.
wait and die in office like John Lewis?
Mhm.
Do I have to die in office? That's not fair. I'm
Right.
not gatekeeping this role. I
Yeah.
need them to move into it,
That's right.
right? So yeah,
Mhm.
I think Louisville could be, but
Mhm.
we got too many people that are stuck in their ways. And when I say people, I'm talking about mine, our
Mhm.
people.
That's right.
Calling our first, and I'm gonna say it, and maybe this is some of the energy I got from the messy besties.
Mhm.
But there was a leader in the community that called out and said black people should stop stealing from Kroger.
Mm.
We
Heard
can't
it.
talk about our people like that.
Heard it.
Why do we do that? Like, why do we do that to each other? I know why people steal, right?
Yeah.
I know that poverty is
And they
killing
do
us,
too.
and they do
They
too.
do too.
Exactly. So I mean, because just because your stealing don't look like going in to the store and putting it in a cart and walking out, maybe your stealing is buying from the booster. Hey,
Mhm.
see, that's my thing. I call stealing stealing. I mean, we all doing
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
So I just have a hard time because there are some of our people who are in position
Yeah.
of leadership, of influence, who perpetuate the same mess I'm trying to come against, which is we can't keep hurting ourselves in our community. That's why
Mhm.
people look at us that don't look like us and
Mhm.
laugh at us. Now,
Yeah.
I'm gonna pause for a second. But like I said, I got activated because that's a great question.
And I feel like it's a great example of a form of what restorative justice could look like.
Hmm.
If you can get two people who are against each other to come together and have a conversation. Now, it might not look the same at the place you do your practices at than it does on the Messy Bestie, but there's
Still something
still
there.
opposing sides
Hmm.
having a conversation.
There you
And
go.
at some point in between that arguing or however they cussing each other out, both of them are listening at some point.
They are.
They are definitely listening. So it is a form, I feel like. But Kanisha, can you also tell us other forms or other ways that these practices are being performed?
Yeah, I would say the thing that I love the most about restorative practices is it doesn't have to look one certain way,
There you
and there's a
go.
million different ways to do it.
Right. Yes.
So what's most popular now is restorative conferences, and so that's
Hmm.
when we take two sides that's been harmed and we
Hmm.
bring them together. Um, and through a dialogue with them, they're able to come to a place where they agree on how they're going to move forward.
Hmm.
Usually, that's some from the criminal system. So that's somebody steals your car or somebody stole from a store.
Hmm.
But in those situations, they have a dialogue with each other and they figure out kind of this is what you've done to me, this is how you've harmed me, and this is what I need to move, what this is what I need for to move forward. And then vice versa, they'll explain kind of what their story is, how they got to that point, and what they need, what they feel they can do to move forward. So that's restorative conferences. But also the bread and butter um, is restorative circles.
Hmm.
So this is something that they do nationally, all over the country. I was able to get trained through an organization by Kanaya Davis, that's Angela Davis' sister, and they have implemented healing circles in Oakland, and these are racial healing circles. So that's something that they're now doing all over the country as well, and that's taking LMPD and police and
Hmm.
bringing them in the room and really talking about what that harm looks like,
Hmm.
what that racial history looks like, what that racial trauma looks like. That's also people. That's taking both sides, black people, white people, Hispanics, everything in between. Bring them in the room and really being able to unpack that racial history, that racial trauma that has, without a doubt, plagued this city and really just has a hold on us where we're not able to move past a certain point. So that's circles. That's healing circles. But circles itself can be done anywhere.
Hmm.
It's what you can do in your classroom. It's what you
Hmm.
can do with the Boys and Girls Club. It's what you can do in the neighborhood just to get together. And when you think about it, we've done them forever. That's when you come together and have a potluck. That's a circle. That's when you're in the
Yes.
classroom and you're having a celebration and you're coming together in a circle. That's a circle. With restorative circles, it's just a lot more intention behind it, and it's a lot more coming to a space where you're like, I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to be brave, and I'm going to put this out there, and whatever happens, happens in a circle. That's circles. Then we also do in a bigger scheme, they have roundtables. And that's when you can have big organizations, big companies, big communities come together and you really get to go through restorative practices, restorative dialogue. And that could be as simple as conflict. If you and I are in conflict and we need to come to a meeting, that's a restorative dialogue that takes place where we figure out how we harmed each other, what that looks like for both sides, and what we can do together to move forward. Let's bring in the community in, how the community has been harmed, or how I may have harmed the community, and what we need to do to move forward. That's when you have someone going through substance abuse issues that may have caused harm. That's bringing them back in, and what can that person do to move forward? That's a circle. So yeah, the one thing I love about restorative practices is it's not a one size fit all. It can be made and created and formatted to fit whatever area it needs to fit. The the basic line of it is having a restorative practice is about coming with intention,
Hmm.
coming with serious intention, and coming into a space that you know you're probably going to get uncomfortable, and it's okay to be uncomfortable. We can't go forward if we don't start getting a little bit more uncomfortable, and that's what it's all about.
Good.
Good.
I love that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the bringing together part of it, the unity that it provides. I do want to give people an opportunity to put your questions in the chat. If you have any questions about restorative justice and its practices, let us know. We'll try to get to those questions and answer those for you the best we can. But right now, we're going to have a quick little break and come right back on the unity that restorative justice provides.
Hey guys, before we get back to the live stream, I'm Tracy, the bartender at Southern Hospitality Bar and Grill, located at 3402 West Broadway. You guys got to come and check us out. You can call your order in, and the phone number is 502-822-1474. Again, I'm Tracy, the bartender at Southern Hospitality. Come check us out, guys.
The lights of Kentucky Performing Arts shine on more than our shows. They illuminate a pathway of discovery for all throughout our Commonwealth. A pathway of creativity, confidence, possibility, of brilliance, inspiration, curiosity, and wonder. For 40 years, Kentucky Performing Arts has led a pathway to unite the Commonwealth around the joy of discovering the arts, and will continue to shine this light far into the future.
Welcome back, everybody. And this conversation is getting so good that I want um, Kinisha to help us to understand how does this look like in bringing unity back to our community? What does that look like? Since unity is something that we scream it, we shout it, we say we need more unity, that kind of thing. How will restorative justice bring us to more unity?
Yeah, I definitely think it has the ability to bring us all the way together in a way that in a space that we haven't been since 2020. And it really starts with having conversations, and it's the simplest conversation of let's talk about our values, let's talk about our wish, let's talk about our wants, our dreams, um, and that's the easiest way to start is coming from a common ground. After you can establish some level of community, then you can go deeper. Then we can start talking about what does it look like to really come together. What is your plan in harm reduction versus what are we doing here at community control now,
Right.
and how can we work together to meet this common goal? The biggest thing that I see as far as the division, the people just aren't talking. A lot of this just comes down to having a healthy dialogue.
That's right.
And being vulnerable, being safe and being vulnerable, being able to say, Shrita, you really hurt me a couple years ago, and I haven't been able to move forward. And then Shreeta being able to say, you know what, I didn't know that,
Right.
or maybe
Yes.
I didn't understand that.
Yes.
A lot of this is just miscommunication
Yes.
and just conversations that aren't happening. So I think in order for us to really collectively move together, we have to have some really, really honest and hard conversations.
Yes.
We have to be able to agree we want to move forward. And we can't move forward if we don't start peeling back everything that's happened.
And I really want us to get serious about that because we're very, very good about being able to say what you did to me.
Right. Right.
But I'm not as good at saying what I did to you.
Yeah.
And that's hard for a lot of people. So I really like the fact that this conversation brings together both sides of what you did, what I did, and what I might have done that I didn't even realize. And we're able to talk about that. We really need more of that. So somebody asked in the comments if these circles are able to be done on college campuses. and specifically HBCUs.
Oh, absolutely,
Ooh.
absolutely. Circles are
Yeah.
used to build community.
Yeah.
It's a place that you build safety and trust. But then if there's an issue, if there's a harm, then you come in this circle and you're able to deal with it. You're able to handle it to keep that person back in the community.
Yes.
So absolutely, they can be done. There is literally not a room in the world where if you've had three people, you can't do a circle.
And if you think about it, the restorative justice practice, a lot of this took place from people who have gone through the carceral system or are being prosecuted for something. I know there was a guy, I can't remember the video we saw. It was a documentary on restorative justice. And these were people who had probably already been charged with something to sit in these spaces and go through the whole process. So what we're talking about is prevention. You know, we're talking about so absolutely a college campus. And I love that someone asked about HBCU. I think that would be a great space. It took me back to school days and made me think about, what if there was a restorative justice? I know that Spike Lee intentionally created this the conflict in coming from a theater background, and I went to Clark Atlanta University. I got to do that plug real quick. The best HBCU out there. No, I'm just saying. But he created the conflict between the two, the darker complexion and the lighter complexion.
That's one of my favorite movies.
But think about that's what came to mind as soon as I heard HBCU. I was like, now imagine a restorative justice process. But think about this. He actually created this tension by putting the light complexion cast members in a nicer hotel. He created this because he needed them to have real tension. So a lot of people talk about, if you look up the documentary on it, they talk about that fight, that there was real beef going on. That he was like, no, let's keep
with
rolling.
The bugaboos and wannabes.
Listen, when they did the step show, that was real tension. But I think about that, like that would be an amazing setting, bringing it back to Black community. Because I was sitting here listening to Kinisha, right? And we talked about Oakland, which I just came back from a conference there.
Yeah, I'm trying to get.
But when you talk about law enforcement being at the table, something came up in my spine. That's one space we're not ready here. Okay, I think we can all kind of agree. Bringing in, because with that restorative process, you have to, like you said, you have to be on the side of being able to come in there with this intention. But I want to be clear. I don't see that being the space for us. I do see it being very intentional for Black community. I don't know, because we're still dealing with the unpacking of our law enforcement, still trying to deal with the justice, the Department of Justice, in this report and the finding of what law enforcement has been doing, the discriminatory practices, racism, all those things. So until we could get to a place where our law enforcement is addressing these issues and not switching chiefs and captains and lieutenants and people around when they act bad, we're not there yet. So yeah, I love that question came up for HBCU because I can't see us incorporating a system that is hell bent on maintaining the structure of power and control that they're in right now.
Well, I'm glad you brought up LMPD because I really do feel like we could be ready if we have leaders who will go to that table and tell them the truth. Okay? Go there and tell them the actual truth. Don't go pussyfooting around questions and, still hee and ha ha. No, directly bring up situations and tell them exactly how they are hurting our community. And I think when we get on that kind of level, these practices will help in some arenas.
Can I ask a question real quick? So there's a space that happens, my understanding, and I went one time, was the bishop's table.
Yeah.
So are they doing that at the bishop's table?
Some people do. Some people don't.
I talked to him about restorative justice at the bishop.
But are they? My question is, are they doing that? This is where I get a little bent up because there's a lot of leaders that go there. Are these leaders in a position to not be afraid? Because when I was in Oakland with the cannabis regulators of color, what we talked about was having leaders, black leaders in position who are not afraid to challenge the systems. We have the bishop's table. Is that happening there? Are people, if we were to walk in there, the three of us, and ask the questions of why are you all moving forward with this masking law of you can't have a mask on walking down the street, that our mayor just reenacted, or you all know the language that's on live. You can say what the word is, but make sure that this is something that could definitely impact the black community. So why do we have leaders in there that's gonna say, "Hey, that's not okay" to law enforcement, and law enforcement listen to them? Or will they just look at us and say, "I don't know what them sisters are doing. They talking. No, we gonna listen to you." Like I need to know what's up.
Okay, let me answer that because I've been there. I brought that issue because I had a serious issue that happened to me and my family directly with some officers. Okay, went there, told them my story, gave them my most honest and in your face explanation of how I felt that we were treated. I'm going to say that Officer Healy, he, was gung ho about getting to the bottom of this, and you can have my personal cell phone number. It's probably still in my phone right now. If I see him right now today, he don't know me from a can of paint. So we also have to bring up the fact that these officers who are coming to the bishop's table don't, and arenas like that, don't come pretending to care. Don't come acting like you're there for us and you're just here putting on a show. Because the kind of conversations that we've had, he should know me from here until the end of his days. He should. If he doesn't know anything, he should know my face. He might not remember my name, but fine. But we also have to have leaders who are not pretending, who are not faking, who are not, just there performing to act like they care. That's one issue that I have with the bishop's table is that people come there and pretend too much. And when people do come and tell the truth and they say exactly how they feel, they're shushed. Your time is up. We'll wait until afterwards. And then the person you want to talk to is long gone.
Right.
So we have to get out of the performing on these leadership levels. We really, really do.
Right.
We have to stop because now people feel like you're putting on a performance.
Of course.
And we don't trust you. And we won't come to you when you want us to, or you say you want to hear our opinions or how we feel. Nobody's gonna give you that insight if they feel like you putting on a mask and you just, right now you're interested, but when you leave, you don't care anymore. And I feel that way about so many different things that have been done, and we don't have enough times to bring them to a table to get the truth. Because those leaders who are speaking on our behalf are not telling the truth. That's how I feel about that. Whew. So, getting back to our questions, what does restorative justice look like in a communal sense? What does it look like? How does it actually work? Um, if there's somebody watching who has been assaulted, or maybe they feel like somebody in their family has done them wrong, who do they go to first of all, and what does that setup look like?
So right now, if it's a case through the court system, you can go in there sometimes. You can go in there and say, I want this case diverted to restorative justice. Unfortunately, it's completely up to the courts. It's up to the attorney. But you can make the plea for that if you want to get away from the court system. Because the reality is, if you're the victim of a crime and you go in court, you won't get contact. You probably won't get contact. A lot of times, victims don't even get notified that there's a court date. So you have no voice in the court system. So if you are lucky enough to find out what's going on and you're able to be present in that space, you absolutely have the right and the ability to say, can we get this diverted to restorative justice? Because there's certain requirements for the courts that I don't have any hand over. But in reality, if because my thing, my passion, my love is doing stuff in the community. And Maxwell, bless his heart, we have been trying to do this in the community for what, 6 months now? Um, so at this point, I say, I challenge the city of Louisville to contact me, Maxwell, Ericka, Shreeta, any of us. If you're in conflict, if there's something going on, before it gets to the court system, if you want to resolve it, contact us. Let us try it. I swear to God, I just want to try it one time in the city of Louisville. I want someone to walk away and say, you know what, that was a waste of time. Or you know what, that really is something. Or you know what, she tried. Something. So I would say if there's a conflict, and it can be any kind, it can be in your house, in your neighborhood, and where you work at, where you hang at, where you live at, I don't care. If you're in the city of Louisville, I will come to you because I just want people to see and try something different. Because hand to God, this can work if we try. If we actually try, this can do something different.
Yeah, I agree.
I believe it too. Because I know of, I mean, we always know of different instances that happen where if there was just a conversation, we would still have some people alive
Man,
today.
That's right.
Because there are plenty of murders and things that happen with violence where if only they were able to have a conversation. And I would hope that these things happen, that these practices will be used early in life. Why aren't they in elementary school? Why aren't they in middle school? Why doesn't the school system have these type of practices in place so that they don't have to use up officers or have to use up their own type of security or discipline system where there could just be a conversation. Sometimes that conversation needs to happen on a higher level, maybe not just with the kids, but you need the parents included in this. So I want to know what kind of infrastructure would it take, whether that's on the government level, on the community level, what would it take for restorative justice practices to become more popular, more seen?
yeah, it would take money. What it takes for everything to happen? Money. When I've met some guys from some different organizations, and I believe it was Oregon, and their state actually implemented restorative justice legislatively. So now throughout the state, they have restorative justice centers that are just focused on conflict. They're focused on circles. And so that's what it would take for us. The reality is, best kept secret, we're in legislation. In House Bill 5, the bill that no one likes,
Wow.
restorative justice was put in and passed.
Had no clue.
Now, what that does, not a lot. But there is a structure created of people, judges, um, criminal justice, um, corrections, different people created that are supposed to spearhead something. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like. But in reality, it's about taking that legislation and really pushing it to the forefront. We do have support from senators, from councilmen, from councilpersons, from every judicial system across the state. We have support, but it's a matter of the state saying, we really want to get behind this and really try this across the state.
So, do you think it would take more of us citizens taking it to our legislators, um, and having our legislators talk about it more, practice it more? Would it take things like that for them to see it in practice? Because a lot of times, I work with data and reports and, showing the numbers. So, would we need that type of data behind it in order to push it forward? Like,
Well, I'm gonna go look up House Bill 5. I just find it interesting that they
mhm,
threw so much terrible stuff in that bill and that piece of legislation that I overlooked it.
Yeah.
So I
It was
really
snuck
hate that.
in.
So if it's already in legislation
mm,
and it's there, it's about accountability.
yes,
As we shared in our own conversations, a lot of things that we're talking about is written into policy. But what happens, especially with us, is that we don't read about it or it's too overwhelming. Which is, for me, that's the reason with House Bill 5 was focused on all the poor pieces of it that I didn't get a chance to embrace anything else. So it's about accountability. If it's there, it needs to be used. What I like to do with working in harm reduction, and more specifically in my organization, we have three pillars: engage, educate, and empower. Okay, those are our three pillars. That education pillar is huge. I do a lot of educating. So it's about us getting the information out there to people to understand, because if your child is brought into the office and they're going through, and it's just an example, they're going through a suspension. If you are aware of the language, then you can come back as a guardian, a parent, or someone a part of their circle of love. You can come back and say, hey, but what about this opportunity for my child? So it's about accountability. The other piece that you brought up, Kinisha, that's very important, is that I want our viewers, everyone that's kind of tuning in to this days after now. This is not just another meeting. That call to action is serious, and we'll do it throughout to the end of this. We're serious. You guys reach out. This is a call to action. We got to actually implement.
yes,
Policies are created after the action. Okay, fentanyl test strips became legal. Before they were legal, Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition was passing out fentanyl test strips, which were illegal under legislation. But we were under a pilot. We were under federal funding that allowed us to do this and collect data. So we have to actually start it. We have to actually start it and say, okay, here's a situation. That's up, a mom, a son. Son is, not coming in. It has to start. And it could be any situation,
Seriously.
right? But we have to actually do it. When it comes to our systems, though, we got the cookie. The cookie is in the policy. So I'm not bringing up something. I have a right. Like I tell my DUI clients, know your rights. Before you go to court on your DUI, I need you to read all your rights, because some of you guys are just signing your life away and you didn't even pay attention. The same thing goes to our family. And to be fair, when we talk about the impact of the war on drugs, which is the failed war on drugs, we have to look at the entire the impact that it's had on the entire community. And a lot of us will say we need the parents. And I always say our structure and idea of parents in a household is not what we all think. If we're in an epidemic of the incarceration rate being sky high for our community, that overdose fatalities are high in our community. Who do you think is raising our children? So we're talking about 2 or 3 generations out. Grandparents. We're talking about foster parents. We're talking about other family members who are raising children and are not connected and are just there trying to figure out how to do it. So
some children are their own parents,
and some of them, a lot of our youth are their parents.
But you know what that is, though? That's a circle. That's a circle of support.
There you go.
So that's something that we do with our DJJ kids. And these are kids that are coming back from camp. A lot of times, they may not have the best home life. They may not have the best parental figures.
Right.
So when we do our circles, we're trying to pull in who else is in their life.
Right.
Bring in the counselor, bring in the therapist, bring in the best friend from down the street, bring
Right.
in the guy from Boston Not Bankers,
Mhm.
bring in whoever we
Yes.
connect them with,
Yes.
put them in the room, and what are we going to do to support this person?
Yes.
To keep them
Right.
alive. What are we
Right.
going to do? That's literally, you don't have to have a
It's
parent.
the bottom line.
We can create a circle of support.
Our
Yeah.
village.
Literally.
It's that village concept.
That's simple.
Creating village. I have a village.
Mhm.
I have no other blood relatives here but my children.
Understood.
Right?
Mhm.
My cousins,
Mhm.
my sister who is probably watching this live, right? I'm not talking about blood. I'm
Right.
talking about the village
Right.
that I've created. My brothers
Mhm.
who are here,
Mhm.
these are not blood. These are people
Right.
who I can call on. Hey, my son is dealing with this. Can
Mhm.
you know? I had a
Mhm.
brother who was taking his son to the Halloween to to go to a haunted house,
Mhm.
right? Hey, can my son hang out with y'all?
Mhm.
You know, like
Mhm.
this is my village.
Right.
So understanding that your village is not gonna be your blood, I love that, right?
Mhm.
So I agree with that. That's who
Yeah.
needs to be at the table.
Absolutely.
All right, y'all. I have another question, but I want to take a break so that we can check on questions and
Yes.
comments from the live. I really, really appreciate all of you tuning in. So give us a quick moment and we'll be right back.
The lights of Kentucky Performing Arts shine on more than our shows. They illuminate a pathway of discovery for all throughout our Commonwealth. A pathway of creativity, confidence, possibility, of brilliance, inspiration, curiosity, and wonder. For 40 years, Kentucky Performing Arts has led a pathway to unite the Commonwealth around the joy of discovering the arts, and will continue to shine this light far into the future.
So we're back, and if you are just tuning in, you missed a wonderful discussion. I mean, it got real. So I'm going to come back to you all and give you a call to action for our community leaders, those who are able. Please, 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 please listen to this conversation. Think about how this conversation and how these practices can be spread out to your networks. But my last question is for somebody who might be watching this and they are really interested in either having a circle or maybe they know of some people who could benefit from a restorative justice practice. Who are the, we've talked about who's involved, who these are for, but who is someone who would facilitate these sessions with people who feel like they've been harmed? Because we have a good way of um, saying what we want to say, and we get rah rah about it. Who is somebody that would be able to facilitate this to make sure that it's guided and it's not just a messy session? It's not
Listen,
just.
my people, boy,
I know,
they pretty much got
they
on
get
that
it
though.
out.
They
They
get
get it
it
out.
out.
But
So
who is somebody that would facilitate these circles, these sessions? Who would they go to? How would that go back?
So, unfortunately, as restorative justice is very big across the nation, it's not very big in Louisville.
right.
And I think we're one of two organizations that do it. The other one is Transformative Justice, and I think they may have a different sector. I don't even know for sure. But primarily, I would say me, since because I'm the person who does community work. The great thing is I work with probably the best team in the city of Louisville that have been trained on restorative practices that love to do this stuff. Recently, about a month ago, the library was tired of having to kick kids out. They wanted to figure out a different way to handle it.
Yeah.
They invited us to come in. We actually did a training session on circles. So now several libraries across the city use restorative circles rather than just kicking a kid out. So either way, we could definitely come out and help guide the circle, show you how the circle works, what it looks like. But if someone was really interested in getting involved, they could be trained in circles. It's not something that takes a degree in biochemistry.
Okay.
It's about coming from a place of intention and coming from a place where you want to do something different. There's some great exercises involved that really incorporate mindfulness and grounding just to bring people to the same space because the circle is about being equal. We're all kind of in the same level. So there's some specific training around it, but essentially anyone can learn to facilitate circles. And if they need help, there's a team of us that would love to come out and get this out anywhere. Anywhere we will do.
So somebody asked on the live, why do we feel like people in Louisville are not um, moving more towards restorative justice practices?
Again, I think it's more or less not being aware of its existence. Not everyone is aware, right? And so individuals who may be tuned into this live may have some familiarity with it, but when we think about holistically, like the entire everyone involved, we don't. So I want you all to think about something. Walk with me, and this is going to be a little difficult to hear. When something happens in our community, we have a couple of sides that we go to. There are folks who are like, I don't want law enforcement coming in taking my people. But there's a lot of us who want law enforcement to lock people up. All right. And I hear it a lot, you guys. So when I think about the reality that we have a very toxic, abusive relationship with law enforcement, that there are parts where we want law enforcement to be there. And I speak collectively. I'm speaking as one too, right? Because someone breaking into my house, who you think I'm like, who you think I'm gonna call? Right? Not Ghostbusters. So I mean, I'm going to call 911 to come do their job. But I did that. I did it for my building when the guy was on the roof with the long gun. And then law enforcement failed me. To this day, they fail me. I grew up in a household of law enforcement, so I have a different view too. But I say this to say that's why I feel like we need to bring the information. We have to educate our community. And the other piece is having people in the community that do this work, that work in harm reduction, that work in the restorative justice practice, that work in the clinical practices, having us at the table, we get to take a practice, you guys, and make it our own. We get to create it. We get to take it, pull it apart, and say, this is what's going to work for us, and this is what's not. That's the harm reduction piece. Because nothing about us without us is a real concept. So when I think of the people who need to be at the table, I'm going to call out some names on here. And this is call out with love because I know these people will be involved. Okay? Some of the people that I think would be absolutely involved in making sure that we have our civic leaders accountable is people like former state representative Ericka Seward. If we were to start doing this, she would stand behind something that's going to impact our community, right? So we're also talking about our very own Metro Council member, Shamika Parrish-Wright, who is not just a Metro Council member, but she's also the ED of Vocal, Kentucky, which they practice some components of restorative justice already without even intentionally knowing it, right? We're also talking about people with lived experience, my fellows who are formerly incarcerated. Savvy Shabazz, for each one teach one or reach one teach one. Look, Savvy, don't get mad at me, right? We have people who are in the community who have lived experience, who know how we're being impacted by the criminal legal system. There's nothing justice about this legal system. What we're talking about is real justice. You know what triggered me, you guys, real quick? Seeing a mom on social media be afraid of her son, and ultimately, to protect herself, have to engage law enforcement. She has a real fear because this child has been pushed for whatever reason, probably wrapped around poverty and lack of access, to go out here and make money to help support his mother's household. And he said it in this video that, hey, you know what? I help. This is my house. And I'm looking at this and I know I can hear her voice. You better, I'm your mom. You are mom. He said it. You are my mother. I'm going to make sure things are taken care of. Why do you have a mask on your face? Because I'm out here in the street. I'm looking like, oh my goodness. And what I envision is folks like Shabby and Savvy and his crew come into this house, having people like us at a location where we bring this youth and we begin this process of healing and restoration. That's what our community needs. The JCPS is under fire right now because of their practices on disciplinary violations. Look at them. They have disciplinary violations that are wrapped around discriminatory practices and racism, and they're being called out, and the schools are listed. This is public information, you all. If they are dealing with this is prime time for us to have the conversation now. I am tired of adults talking about how bad our youth are and negating what has happened. We are living in the most oppressive system. Just because we don't look like the other countries don't mean we're not being treated. Where our black children are targeted, where a little black girl can go missing and the police will look at her as just a runaway, but not look at the fact that she could be sex trafficked. Like, we are talking about real discriminatory practices, and all our people can do is say they too bad and somebody needs to do something, lock them up. How dare our community do that to us? Those are our babies. That's the truth. So this is like my white flag. It's me saying, come on, you guys.
Yes.
We got to do something different that will help because guess what? We gonna die one day. All of us are. And who the hell are we leaving everything to?
That's right.
Bunch of hurt kids.
Hurt.
Yes, and how did they get hurt?
There.
They weren't born.
They weren't born bad.
Right. They got hurt somewhere from the womb to now. Somewhere along that line, somebody hurt them.
And the system needs to take full accountability for it. We cannot say that we have seen over the last 53 years that the war on drugs has been going on. And 50 years of the carceral system becoming a for-profit business that you can invest in. Yes, go look it up in the penal system. You can invest in the penitentiary, baby, because they're privatized. Yes. So we can't look at all of that. The war on drugs, the crack epidemic, how people were getting locked up. Our parents' generation, people being locked up, and say, what's happening to these kids now? What do you think is happening?
Exactly.
What do you think is happening? No, I'm not talking about bringing religion into school. That's not the answer. That's a whole nother conversation. I'm talking about our spiritual leaders stepping up and speaking up, though. Yeah, so I am calling the churches out. Our black churches have pushed them away, too. The black youth that kill themselves. Yeah. Restorative practices could actually begin in the church. They could begin in the church. Like, hey, that's a space.
Okay.
We shouldn't even be sitting in the office. We should be in somebody's church because they should be opening up for us to have these kind of conversations. We have to start holding everyone accountable. If you're going to talk about these parents, you need to talk about these leaders, these civic leaders, and you got to talk about our spiritual, our faith-based leaders, because no one's talking about them. I've already got with the legislators. I've already got with our Metro Council. I already got with people who are making the policy. Now it's time to come to the community. And our nonprofit organizations need to step up, and our faith-based community needs to step up. You push too many of our babies out of the door and you wonder why your pews are not filled with them because they don't feel the love from you. And this is real talk. So I this is a call to action, y'all.
Definitely. And she didn't know that's where I was going, but that's where I was going, is to a call of action. We have to call out our leaders. We have to put you at the table. And if you feel like this isn't something if you can't even have a sensible conversation, please don't come to this table. Okay? If you can't have an honest, sensible conversation, please do not come to our table. I'm gonna put on my King Kong consciousness right now. One more time. If you cannot have a sensible, honest conversation, don't come to this table. But for those who want to put aside what we have done for generations, is sweep things under the rug. We're very good at that. A lot of our issues come from deep within our own family. Okay, we did not get here overnight. We didn't just wake up and all of a sudden all hell broke loose. That's not how it happened. There's generations after generations after generations of harm that has been done to people, and we don't want to keep passing this on to the next generation. I don't want my grandkids to live in a world where there's no conversation if there is conflict. I want that to be a regular practice that is first and foremost in their lives when they grow up. I don't want us to be a people who don't discuss our issues anymore. We have to put them out there. We have to tell the truth. And it might sting, it might hurt, it might not feel good. But if you consider yourself a leader, please join this conversation. And soon we are going to have a town hall type conversation where we will have more leaders who are in this restorative justice work and they are ready to push this here in our city. We can't expect anything to happen if we don't get out there and make it happen. And with whatever arena you're in, you might be on the drug rehab side. You might be on the houselessness side. You might be on the defund the police side. Whatever side you're on, whatever is your cause and um, your focal point, please have this conversation with us. So we will be putting out information, um, possibly coming in November, the 17th. We're going
Say
we're
that
gonna
date.
claim the 17th.
Yep. Say
Let's
that
go on
date,
and say it.
y'all.
We are going to have a conversation where we will talk about how you move forward in this. How do we spread the word? How do we get these trainings going up and running? Because if there's trainings happening right now, it's not talked about enough. It's not loud enough. And you need to get it out to a little bit more people if you are having these trainings, these conversations. We need to know about it. So if you are interested, please, 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 please let us know in the comments. Let us know in our inbox. Let us know that you want to be a part of this conversation so that we can move forward and we can move forward to being more productive citizens. Because it's until then that we will be able to really, really say things like defund the police, defund these court systems, these jails. But we have to have an alternative if we're going to do any of those things.
Exactly.
So please, 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 please let us know that you want to be a part of these conversations and always, always stay live. Do you all have any other comments or anything you want to put in?
No, definitely just follow me on Facebook, Kinisha Carey. And hopefully I'll see you in November.
Yes, follow me if you don't. Shreeta Walden. Um, I do want to just lead this piece. You got to be either or. Either you're going to be a part of the problem or you're going to be a part of the solution. And remember to vote.
Yes.
Remember to vote, you guys. This is big. Get out there and vote.
That's right. So, as we leave you today, just please remember to let us know if you want to be a part of this conversation. Look out for our community conversation, our more town hall conversation, where you will be invited to come in and give your opinion, ask your questions, let us know how you feel. And if you want to be involved, let us know that too, so we can start getting you connected with some of these trainings that are happening. So that will be all for us right now. And stay live. It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
We will not make excuses. We will make changes.
It is our duty.
It is our duty to
Love and support.
we must love.
Does the mayor still plan to spend this money in the same way following this announcement? And if so, why does he think he has the authority?
We have nothing to lose.
I've been here every day.
We have nothing to lose but our chance.
But our chance.
But our chance.